Hi there guys, my name's John from ActiveJR.com, and in this video I'm going to be doing a review of the Samsung Gear Sport. Now specifically I'll be focusing on the fitness features and the iPhone support that comes with the Gear Sport. Now nearly all of my testing was done while I was out in Thailand, and I took it through a variety of different activities from cycling, swimming, running, and also hiking through the rainforest. So hopefully I've got enough information to be able to give you a good overview of whether this is the right watch for you if you're using an iPhone. Now before we get started, please subscribe to my channel, it's really appreciated. And also if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've got a question or a comment, please leave it in the comment section below and I will get back to you. And finally, check out my website, ActiveJR.com, where I've got more fitness information, wearable reviews, and also some smart home information. So thanks very much, let's get straight into the video. So starting with the design and build quality, the Gear Sport case is made of a brushed aluminium, which is really nice to touch. It does attract a few fingerprints, however they rub off fairly easily. Now the straps are removable and they're 22mm in size, and these are made of silicone. Now you can buy other bands from either Samsung or third-party sites like Amazon or eBay, and I suggest to do that because the strap, whilst it's okay, it's not the best strap that I've had on my wrist, and I would recommend changing it out. Now on the back of the Gear Sport you've got a heart rate monitor, and this is a optical heart rate monitor you find on most fitness watches. I will cover this more in the review in the fitness section. Now turning it over, you've got this beautiful 1.2 OLED screen, which is a touch screen, and it works really well on when you're swiping through the menus and when you are interacting with the screen. Now I think this screen is really beautiful. It's one of the best screens that I've used on a fitness watch, and I would say it's on par with the Apple Watch. Now the Gear Sport also features this rotating bezel, and when I first heard about it I wasn't too convinced, but now I've used it, I'm really liking it. It's one of the better ways out of all the fitness watches I've used to navigate a device, and you can use it to navigate menus, and you also can use it to scroll through the data screens when you're in a workout. Now you've also got two buttons on the right hand side, and these buttons are for going back home and also for selecting menus. Now they've got an abrasive edge, so you do know they're there, and they always respond to a first touch. Now using the Gear Sport for everyday use and on the wrist, I found it really comfortable. It feels like a nice watch on the wrist. I think it will suit most people. Now in terms of using the rotating bezel, I've already said this really complements the touchscreen, because especially when you have got your hands wet or you've been in the water, the touchscreen is not as responsive as you'll always find with touchscreens. So the rotating bezel, it really helps you out when you want to interact with the device. So now moving on to the activity tracking, it tracks things like steps, stairs climbed, distance travel, and calories burned. Now I found this pretty accurate comparing it to my normal fitness wearable, and the steps, stairs climbed, all those things were pretty much in line. To access the information, you just rotate the bezel right or touch the screen to the right. Now you can access individual widgets which give you a overview of say steps or stairs climbed, but you also can drill down into further detail and look at the previous days or the previous week, which I think is fairly useful. Now one of the big things that I found with the Gear Sport, and other reviewers have commented on this well, is the Samsung My Day widget. Now I think this is one of the best widgets that's available on a fitness watch. It certainly beats the likes of the Apple Watch with the rings, and also Garmin's My Day widget as well, which doesn't go into enough detail. Now accessing this, you can access the My Day widget and it will take you in to all the different bits of information. You also can then go deeper into them menus to see further detail. You can see things like steps, stairs climbed, and all of those things. Now one of the biggest things is this timeline view, where you can scroll through your entire day and see what you've been doing, and when you've been doing it and what impact that had on your day. So I think this is really useful, and again, I like how Samsung have laid this out and have used the software and the hardware to give a good user experience. Moving on to the fitness tracking, the Samsung Gear Sport tracks a variety of different activities, from running, cycling, treadmill running, all the way through to exercise like yoga and those types of exercises. It also does rep counting for things like squats, lunges, sit-ups, and those types of exercises. One of the things that really surprised me, it doesn't do strength training. So like the Garmin Vivo Active 3, you can count your reps when you're doing, say, bicep curls. Now, the Samsung Gear Sport obviously has the technology built in, but they've not enabled that on the watch. Fitness activities can be done through two different ways. First of all is through the activity menu, or you can go through the fitness menu. Now, accessing this, you get all the different activities and you can select them. Now, one of the things I did notice that the activities have got an indoor and an outdoor mode, and this can be activated within the menus. However, say for running, you've also got a running mode, but you've also got a treadmill mode, which obviously the treadmill mode only does indoor. Now, the Gear Sport is waterproof to 50 meters and it can be used in salt water. Now, one of the odd omissions again for the Gear Sport is that you can't use it for open water swimming, so it won't track any open water activities. Now, that's pretty surprising given it's protected against salt water and it's protected to 50 meters. So I'm not sure if Samsung will enable this in the future, but certainly right now at the time of this review, you can't use it for open water swimming. Now, one of the other things with the swimming mode, it only tracks pools which are 25 and 50 meters in length. So if you want to do, say, a custom pool length, say 21 meters, you can't set that, so you are stuck to training in 25 or 50 meter pools. Now, I tested the Gear Sport across a number of different activities, from running, indoor cycling, hiking, and swimming. Now, I used the optical heart rate monitor on all occasions, and I used it with my normal daily activity tracker along with a chest strap to look at the heart rate variances. Now, starting with outdoor running, the outdoor running it performed really well in terms of GPS when I was comparing it to another fitness tracker, and in terms of the heart rate tracking, again, it performed well when I was looking at the heart rate information against a chest strap. In terms of indoor running on a treadmill, the distance traveled was way out compared to the treadmill and the other fitness tracker, but the heart rate performance was still there, and it tracked in line with the chest strap. Now, I found most fitness wearables do track okay when it comes to running or walking activities with an optical HR sensor. Now, moving on to cycling, I wasn't able to do any outdoor cycling while I was out in Thailand, but I did it on a indoor trainer, and I tried to simulate as much as possible what it'd be like to be on a bike. I was moving around, I was standing up, and I was moving my wrists around a lot. In terms of the heart rate performance, the heart rate wasn't that good, and I found this with most optical HR sensors when I've been using them. So it didn't catch the peaks, and it didn't catch when my heart rate was recovering. It seemed to always be a bit slower in terms of those peaks and highs. Now, moving on to hiking, the GPS performance for the hiking wasn't that good, and it wasn't that good on my other test device either. I think this was because of the dense jungle that we was hiking through in Thailand, and it wasn't able to get an accurate GPS lock. Now, the trek was about 6k, and now the Gear Sport only tracked about 3.2k, and the other wearable was a lot closer at 5.5. While some people probably think it's not fair to compare it to hiking in a jungle, however, I did want to do this and see how well it performed, and even the tracks weren't as accurate when we compared it to the route that had been planned out. Now, using it for swimming, it was really accurate for swimming. The heart rate performance was there, and it seemed to track really well, and also the lengths and distances were also correct. Now, for swimming, it does capture things like SWOLF and some other swimming data, so that's really useful. In terms of the gym training, so as I've already mentioned, it doesn't do strength tracking. However, it does count the reps of things like lunges, squats and sit-ups. Now, I've seen other reviewers, both on YouTube and the internet, that have basically said that the rep counting doesn't work that well. However, I did find it did. I think the important thing is two things. One, follow the instructions that come up on the watch to how to start that particular exercise, because the watch, I think, needs to be in a certain position in order to count the reps. The second thing is, what's your form? So take your time to do the exercise correctly and make sure that it's done in the right way and that your form is correct. I found that if I followed those two rules, the Gear Sport tracked my reps without any issue. When I did a test and started the exercise in a different position the watch had told me to do, or my form was incorrect, then the watch didn't track the reps. Now, moving on to the iPhone compatibility and performance. Now, I used it with a iPhone 7 Plus, starting with some of the information around the apps that I can use. You get the Samsung Gear app and also the Samsung Health app. And the Samsung Gear app, it's pretty simple. It gives you all the information in terms of settings, the watch condition in terms of battery and all of those things. I think that's really useful. You also can access the App Store and download various different apps from the App Store onto the watch. Now, moving on to the Samsung Health app. On first impressions, it looks really polished, it looks really good. However, when you dig a little bit deeper, it's pretty empty. There is nothing much there. If you compare this to, say, the Garmin Connect app, that gives you a load of information. So on the face of it, it looks like a really polished app, but actually when you dig a little bit deeper and you want to get a lot more information, it seems to lack. Now, moving on to the smart notifications. The smart notifications work really well. One of the things with the iPhone is you can't respond to them and you can't answer calls on the watch. Now, the notifications come up on the screen as they come through, but you also can access all your notifications by scrolling to the left or swiping to the left on the watch. And these are really crisp, really clean, and they present the information in a great way. Now, looking at the third-party apps, I think one of the things I need to point out is if the app on the watch needs a companion app that sits on the phone, then it's not going to work with an iPhone. So, for instance, I wanted to use the Speedo On app, which is the app from Speedo which tracks your swimming activities, and I installed it, but unfortunately I wasn't able to sync any data back. So when I got in touch with Speedo, they informed me that you do need a companion app that sits on the phone. So that's one thing to be aware of, that any apps that require a companion app, then they won't sync back. So I suspect things like Map My Run, My Fitness, My Fitness Pal, and all of those things that need a secondary app in order to sync back to the servers, it's not going to work. Now, moving on to battery life performance, I was getting about 2.5 to 3 days when I was using the device, and this was heavily using it every day and using it for a variety of different activities. And that's surprising given the quality of the screen and how clear and how bright it is. Now, if you compare that to, say, the Apple Watch, which is about 19 hours, and the Vivo Active 3, which is about 3 days, it's a pretty good battery performance given all the other things that go into this watch. Now, charging the device took about 1.5 hours, and it charges on this cradle, which still allows you to interact with the device. It shows that Samsung are thinking about how users interact with their wearables. Certainly in this case, you can have it on your bedside table and you can still scroll through, set alarms, or look at information while it's on charge. And especially when you first wake up in the morning, you can access the information that you want to look at. Starting with things that I did like, I think it's got a great build and design. I think Samsung have really thought about how the design of the watch and how the user will interact, especially the rotating bezel. The native sports apps are great, and I particularly like the rep tracking for some of the things like lunges or squats. And the screen's fantastic. The clarity and the brightness and the crispness of the screen is absolutely amazing. And I think for a watch at this price point, it works really well, especially the touchscreen as well. That's really good. Now, some of the cons, The iPhone integration could be better. It works, and it's great to see that a Android device is working with an iPhone. However, there could be improvements, but these are not all down to Samsung to fix. Third-party apps, I've already said, are limited on the watch when using it with an iPhone. And in my view, whilst I said the battery life is great, I think the battery life could be better. I think Samsung in the next version could squeeze a bit more battery life out of the device. Now, should you buy this Samsung Gear Sport? I think it's a nicely built fitness watch. And you can see Samsung have put time and effort into getting the hardware to work with the software. That's evident through the rotating bezel and how all the menus all hold together and work. The fitness features work really well with the activity tracking, giving you a fairly accurate picture of your day and performance. But as I've already said, the biggest letdown is the iPhone compatibility and the third-party app support when using an iPhone. I did, however, use it with a Samsung Galaxy S7 for a week, and the issue with third-party apps was removed, and also all the other niggling things that I found when using it with an iPhone were also removed as well. I think the bottom line is, if you're going to be using this with an Android phone, then this is a great choice. But be mindful when using an iPhone and what experience to expect. Okay guys, thanks very much for watching this video. That's the end of the video. If you've liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you've got a question, please leave it below. And finally, subscribe to my channel. Thanks very much. I'll speak to you all soon.